Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Java again. Thank you kindly for joining me. This is our special Alien Edition, and it is Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. So let's move on with this. Today, we've got a day in the markets, should be relatively calm. We'll go through some of the other stuff. Missed everybody yesterday. Looks like it was quite the bit of a chop session. And I believe they're still looking forward to that CPI numbers on Wednesday. So not really too much significant prior to that. So let's start with our MMRI did. It's still in high territory. So staying in that range still. We're watching the 10-year specifically. That did have a spike and then pulled back down. So that was a very interesting move. I kind of missed a lot of things yesterday. I was watching the eclipse, and I'll probably do a separate video on that for the totality. That was completely worth it, by the way. So back to the markets, we're looking at the 10-year yield as well as the relative strength of the dollar. So I think that as long as we stay below that 4.5 level on the 10-year yield, it'll be okay. If it goes above that, stock market won't like that at all. So we've got a couple of currency markets in play right now. In specific, we've got first the yen, Japanese yen, and also the Chinese yuan now. We've got Janet Yellen asking them to ramp down their production because she says it's bad for our economies and therefore the global economy. So going into the fear greed index did inch deeper into greed territory yesterday. So and that shifted as well. So it looks like kind of everything sold off for a bit when that yield went up and then recovered. And my apologies, I don't have much more information on that at the moment, but I did get back kind of late. So we've got the stocks opening. Really, they're flat. They're relatively flat. Gold is up, and that's probably the only one. Gold and silver, even crude, is relatively flat. So not a huge fear trade, not the VIX up. And we've got the futures are very similar. So as I said, the sentiment, we're not getting any large reports today or data. So most are preparing for CPIs because CPI, we will get some of those numbers prior to the market open tomorrow. So particularly if you're long swing plays or options, make sure you kind of set yourself up for that before the end of today. So today I expect similar, I call it choppy today in range because it's not really going to be definitive. It would be interesting if it was. So the calendar, as we're looking at all of these, is 8:30 a.m., 8:45 because it doesn't open until 9:30 for regular market trading hours. We're getting CPI, the year over year, and then also Bowman, Fed President Bowman, she's going to be speaking. So we'll get more Fed presidents later than the minutes of the FOMC meeting. So that could be really interesting because they've kind of been changing their tune lately. So that's at 2:00 tomorrow. So we'll also be watching jobless claims on Thursday. So for banks and central banks, the current news, this is the other currency kind of issue that I was referring to. European Central Bank with the Fed splitting. This says ignites talk of euros sliding to dollar parity. So we've been speaking about this before this. When they do these cuts, then it's going to seriously have fluctuations within the currency market of one against another, and that has serious implications for the trade, particularly for the euro, since they're not as strong as the American trade. Their market's much smaller, not as large, not as liquid, so it will be affected more. So we'll be watching that. My opinion is they will have to choose to hike at the same time and also the same pace. And if you remember, they were telling us they don't collaborate. Well, now it's very clear that they are, and they have to, really. Otherwise, they'll go crashing things like bull in a china shop. So we've got Coinbase moving over to this. Now, Coinbase cleared in a lawsuit over crypto transactions. So they're completely over this. So I expect that to be very good for them today. If you're watching that stock, also Bitcoin came up in price. but it's kind of edging itself back down as well. There is a gap that I think needs to be filled. I'm kind of hoping it would go back to 58, but I'm doubting that. Just buy opportunity coming in. So, more news. We knew this was coming. We've been talking about this, how more banks, particularly small mid-sized banks, must either close, merge, or get acquired. And that's exactly what's happening. So they're beginning to put these out in stories now that the pace of deals through late March, the banking industry on track for most branch sales since 2021. So this is all like basically COVID era. I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, but at any rate, since that time that they're having similar issues. So that should tell you kind of the period we're looking at and where we're back to. So moving on with this energy and commodities, copper. So now they're admitting it already is. So it's kind of made the bulk of its move, but copper entering a new bull market phase. So there's more room to run for sure, but it's kind of already made a large amount of ground. And of course, gold as that's coming up. So probably I would like to see a correction in those prices a bit so they can continue solidly higher instead of being really volatile. And then they admitted, so they're saying power bills will keep rising even after the Fed tames inflation. So there's a huge assumption there that they will, which they're not going to. It's going to continue to inflate just at a slower pace. So energy they're expecting to increase again. And that was one of the interesting things was watching some oil darks working. That was pretty fascinating. So anyway, some things we're watching right now. I don't know those of you that are going to be day traders, if you have seen this on Rocket Labs, but they now have a large $14.5 million contract from the US Space Force. So I expect that one to move, probably pre-market on this news, if you want to watch that. And we've got Tesla with a couple of stories in positive news for them. So I expect a little more strength in Tesla today. You know, they kind of had issues and then we're recovering some yesterday. So both of these stories, I want to bring these next two up to put these together. They both came from Bloomberg. And this just makes me wonder if these people even read their own newspapers. Because first, they print that business bankruptcies have jumped as a slow wave of failure speeds up. So they're wondering where these business bankruptcies, where they're coming from and how this is going to go. Well, we already know where this is going, more business bankruptcies. And then they say Eurozone firms' loan demand fell substantially. And they don't, the central bankers have put this together because they already know this. And this is what they've designed it to do. This is basically the commercial real estate kind of having one more peg down. So I wanted to bring up this as well. Insurance companies using drones and high altitude balloons to spy on homes and deny coverage. If you didn't know this, whenever you do a claim for something for the insurance, they do use investigators. So this is, in my mind, just kind of an add-on. But I did want to bring this up because insurance companies, we've been talking about having their problems, and those are two huge items that are going to be expanding: insurance companies and then also property tax. So if you're new here and you're looking at the real estate market, consider those because they will have a large effect going forward. Into wars. Now, I want updates on the wars because there's a lot going on, of course, but even just on this one side, this is particularly Russia/Ukraine, that we're in proxy war with Russia. So first, the US is now trying to hammer down on Russia and keep them from developing new energy projects, in particular LNG, so liquid natural gas, but the area is Novatek's Arctic. So they have created new sea roads. They use their icebreakers to get through these paths. And the US is now saying that they want to keep them from completing this because this would kill the United States trade. So I don't see them being able to do this, but there's a huge, they're denying it right now, but there is a large land scuffle over the Arctic area right now. So we've also got the European Union ramping up purchases of Russian grain. Now, this is kind of ironic because Latvia basically banning agricultural exports from its neighbor over the Ukraine conflict. And so they're bolstering Russia through this Ukraine conflict. So it's kind of backwards. At any rate, going on more, we had a US Senate leader, Chuck Schumer, saying Ukraine has lost the war and they're in desperate need of American funding. They have been for quite some time. They're doing now basically drafting everybody they can. But then on top of that, they put out this story that they're sparing clowns, claiming them to be basically strategic importance. So clowns will not be drafted. But keep in mind, this is the same person that was demanding that we send either NATO, European, or American troops in. So they want us to send our blood and guts over, but they don't want to put their clowns in. I don't know. A couple of short notices. We've got some more distraction going on. So they popped out this news about Pentagon UFO chief saying alien mothership in our solar system is possible. Well, I think anything is possible, but the fact that they're floating out these stories now again are just really distractions. And then I put this in for the Hadron Collider, talking about reaching the first stable beam. So they fired it up again. I was trying to find the latest updates on not just that, but then also the missiles that they had shot up, but there's nothing about them yet. So I'll keep you up to date with those. Hopefully they'll be out by the time I do a separate one on this. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful day. Until I see you again, my friends. Thank you for all you've done. Stay free.